This evening we're going to look at another parable that Jesus spoke. Parable, that which goes beside, something thrown beside, but it's very important that we understand what's put beside these stories, these physical stories. All of them are true. Doesn't mean they actually happen in history, but they're all connected with truth. And what we learn from that is a spiritual, we call it a spiritual lesson, a lesson that we can apply to ourselves. And this evening we're going to be looking at Luke 16, where we're going to learn what Jesus thinks about money. And then we're all having to deal with money. And Jesus spoke so much about money that I think he realizes it's important in our lives. It's a medium of exchange, but it can become the main focus of our life, and it even can become our God. So in Luke the 16th chapter, we read of an interesting story that Jesus gives. And notice in verse 1, he says this unto disciples. Seems to be the same setting that he has just finished in Luke 15. When also the people listening are the Pharisees. And at the end of this parable, Pharisees are still listening. So he speaks to his disciples to teach them a lesson, but also to teach a lesson to the Pharisees and the people beside that were listening to him speak this parable to his disciples, which is an interesting setting that we are observing. But what is puzzling, that this is a parable of the unrighteous steward. That's already a negative in the sense of, well, we don't want to be unrighteous. We want to listen to a parable that makes us righteous. Well, this will help you be righteous. And we've got to follow the thinking of Jesus to get the point that he's driving at, but it's not difficult to understand. And yet, sometimes men have made it difficult. I want to divide this parable, as the parable unfolds for us, in two separate parts. First of all, we see the story unfold. There is a rich man. He has a steward. And the steward is not righteous. He's wasting his goods. And we see that in the first part of this. I want to hit these high points, and then I want to hit a very crucial verse that becomes a dividing point in the whole parable, which I think will help us make the proper divisions and distinctions. Number one, he was wasting his master's goods. Verse 1, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he was wasting his goods. That was a pretty indication that he was, and he's wanting him now to come and give account of his stewardship, because he's no longer employed. He's not going to be used. And that's what we see in verse 2. He called him and said unto him, what is this that I hear of thee? Render the account of thy stewardship. I think he thinks it's true, for thou canst no longer steward. You failed what that work is about. And so here we see the thoughts going from the rich master to this steward who begins to think internally. He thinks within himself, and he comes up with the plan. This is verses 3 and 4. And the steward said within himself, what shall I do? Seeing that my Lord taketh away the stewardship, I'm losing that. He's facing reality. I have not strength to dig. That's what a lot of people say. They got more strength than they think they do. But this is what he is. I'm not going to dig. I'm not going to go out there and dig in the vineyards and that sort of thing. I'm just not strong enough to do that. I heard this last week of an endurance runner. He has gone beyond. He's a SEAL and all those things. And he says that we only do about 40% of what our brain tells us. We only go up to 40% of what we actually could do, as he has run hundreds of miles when he could not run any longer. And so we could probably do some digging if we had to, but that's out of the question. I'm out of stewardship. I'm not going to dig, and I'm too ashamed to beg. So he goes through those three alternatives. He said, I don't like either any one of those things. So I'm resolved, verse 4, to do something that we're going to see was a very prudent decision as far as he was concerned. Remember, he's still unrighteous. But that doesn't mean he's not thinking in terms of being prudent. I resolve what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, and that's about ready to happen, they may receive me into their houses. Those people that he didn't get money from because he was to be a righteous steward, he didn't do that. He wasted all that. So he would go to those that owed his master something, and he began to lay out the plan. And he called into each one. What does he do? He tells them, how much do you owe my master? Well, 100 measures of oil. Well, sit down and write 50. Pay that. Well, if you were one that owed 100, and you said, no, we'll solve it with 50, would you do that? Wouldn't that be prudent of you to do that? In this old world, that sounds like a pretty good deal. How many measures of wheat do you owe my Lord? He say until 100. Well, write down 80. Don't know why 80 here and 50 there. But that's Jesus speaking about these things. And realize they would like that. That's a good deal. And knowing human nature, he says, when I get through with that, they will receive me into their houses, receive me into their tents, because I did something for them. Isn't that the way the world works? Anything wrong with the way the world works? He's still unrighteous. But he's speaking about this. And here is a very important verse. And his Lord commended the unrighteous steward because he had done wisely. How many people read that? It says the Lord commended him. It didn't say the Lord commended him. His Lord. We're still in the story. It didn't say Jesus commended him. It says his Lord commended him. It shows you how unrighteous he was, how worldly thinking he is. This steward has not taken the 100, not getting what I deserved. But he said he's okay with that because he said that man's clever. You have acted wisely. You still don't have a job. You're still unrighteous. But he admired, and that was his Lord that did that. We haven't seen what Jesus thinks about it yet. But that's the story that Jesus, don't think it's his Lord. And don't think that this master is God. He is just as unrighteous as the unrighteous steward. To think that will declare, at least I got something, so I'm okay with that. He didn't get what he deserved. But I got something. That's the way the world works. And that's just so true. That here is someone thinking prudently of what he could do before he's taken out, and he's unrighteous and unrighteous, and God doesn't commend him. Jesus doesn't commend him for being unrighteous. His Lord commends him. It's what rich people would do. At least I got something out of him before I fired him. And he got something out of it too. He's going to be received by those people that ought to be grateful. Hey, we got a I'll take care of him. That's a pivotal verse, verse 8. Now, let's let Jesus talk. Jesus begins, and I say to you. And he makes three distinct points that I want to quickly look at this evening. He doesn't commend unrighteousness. He doesn't commend this one acting prudently. He will use that. But there's nothing now follows that's going to be commending unrighteousness. And yet how many people have problems with this parable thinking that? It was his Lord that commended him, not the Lord. But Jesus speaks now. He says, number one, make to yourselves friends by means of the mammon of unrighteousness. Here are the worldly treasures. And he uses this term unrighteous mammon because so often that's how it's obtained. And we just see how it's obtained unrighteously. But you make yourselves friends of this money, that when it shall fail, they may receive you into eternal tabernacles. Now he's branching out. He's taken our thoughts and said, Here are the men of this generation. And they think in terms of only this generation. But you're sons of light. Where do we get that? Because that pivotal verse, after his Lord commends him wisely, he said, the sons of this world are for their own generation wiser than the sons of the light. Sons of this world? We've just been seeing these first 7 verses that taking place. And sometimes they are more prudent and dealing with the unrighteous mammon than the sons of light are. But what do the sons of light need to be looking at? Of how to use that unrighteous mammon means it's an instrument for something that is greater and far-reaching than this generation, this world. And I don't think it is something that he just threw it out there. Eternal tabernacles is significant. Tabernacles, that's a tent. Verse 4, I'm persuaded they'll put out the stewardship. They may receive me into their houses. Their houses. This world stuff. I've got eternal tents for you, sons of light. They're prudent with the money, but they see so blindly. Only this. I want you, sons of light, to see eternal tabernacles. And I want you to learn to use that money. It means that you acquire it unrighteously. This is not an unrighteous attitude. But he's looking at that example and taking that and causing us to look beyond this world. We're sons of light. And sometimes we don't even think in terms like that. The world does. And so we see that happening in verse 9. And then verse 10 and 11. He that is faithful in little is faithful also in much. Now you tell me and look into these verses what you think little and what you think much is. I'll put it on the board. See if you agree. He that is faithful in a little is also faithful in much. And he that is unrighteous in a very little is unrighteous also in much. So I've got little and much. I wonder what's going to fit in those categories. Next verse. If therefore you have been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, that's little. Who will commit to your trust the true riches? That's much. True riches? I thought this money is about as true as you can get in this world. Show me the money. And we paid our debts. We paid some medium of exchange. But Jesus is talking about eternal tabernacles. Then he branches us to something that is true. Of course, riches is added by the translators. I think it rightly so. But what was little? This unrighteous mammon is little stuff, but you need to learn to use it in a way that is commendable by Jesus and God. So indeed, you can realize the true riches that can be given to you. So eternal tabernacles, true riches. He's now saying being faithful. This man wasn't faithful in little. He was kicked out of his stewardship. But if you're faithful in the little, saints, unrighteous mammon, use it. Obtain it lawfully. Have honest occupations, but use it to be received into eternal tabernacles. Use it so you can be involved and committed to your trust true riches. And then thirdly, verse 12. If ye have not been faithful in which is another's, this is a third distinct point he makes. Who will give you that which is your own? Nobody. Here is you just showing your stewardship, and you failed in that. He did. So Jesus is not commending him anytime in this. He's looking at what is considered prudent. He said, let's take what prudence is, sons of light, and let's look beyond the horizon of this generation And let's open your eyes to eternal tabernacle. Let's open up to true riches. Let's realize that if you fail in your stewardship, here's going to give you that which is your own. What master is going to do that? That you have something of your own. And so we see something that can belong to me, something that is very much true riches, eternal tabernacles. That verse 9 hits with the story of being received, but he takes us on in to everlasting life. And that's what Jesus is emphasizing all through his discussions about money. And something that can belong to ourselves. I wonder when that's Jesus' application. Now he's speaking. Can we apply that in our life today? I think so. I think so. Verse 13, he says, no servant can serve two masters. For either will hate the one and love the other, or else he'll hold the one, despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. He's hitting at a very important point. You need to look further than this present generation. They're looking out for themselves. And as far as this generation is concerned, they may be prudent in their unrighteousness, and even the rich master is okay with all that. You're not going to hire him, but at least I got something out of it. And he commends him for his being clever. And what sons of light need to do is to look beyond this present generation and realize, who is my God? Who pulls my strings? Why do I buy the things that I buy? How am I using my money that's been entrusted to me by God? And we know that the rich young ruler who wanted eternal life, who asked, what am I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said, keep the commandments. And he went to the commandments that are not the 5 dealing with my relationship with God, but my relationship with God with the 5 that deal with my relationship with my fellow man. He passed it, done all that, did that. We told him to sell what he had and give to the poor. He went away exceeding sorrowful because he was very rich. Luke 18:23. He was very rich. Jesus saw in his heart idolatry. And we'll come back to that at the end of the lesson. And that is a big possibility. That's what makes a lot of people click. And it's how they're going to use money. It's not the fact that money is bad. It's the love of money. And so we need to realize that what people a lot of times are doing are serving the master of mammon. Who is your master? Who is the one that you follow? Sons of light? And you can capture, and it can grab every one of us. And we have to be on guard for that. Secondly, I want to know how I lay up treasure in heaven. We read Matthew 6, lay not for yourselves treasures upon the earth. Know the common sense look at that Jesus has, where it can all rust and where people could steal. But lay up yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust and those things cannot consume, where nobody can dig, as we look at Luke's account, can dig under and steal it. Okay, I want my treasure to be there. How do I do that? What do we have in the Bible that helps us do that? Let's let Jesus answer that directly. In Luke the 12th chapter, fear not, little flock, as he speaks to his disciples and followers. Fear not, little flock, for it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. This is what you need to do. Sell that which you have and give alms, and 2 blessings will happen. Make yourselves purses with which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not. I can go through life and wonder, how am I going to get treasure up there in heaven? Take what you have and give to the poor. That's what you do. And you have treasures in heaven. And it's laid up for you. Who's going to give you your own? God is. It's the treasure. And I know that is one way in which God has told us, and he emphasizes that. He did that with the rich young ruler. Here's what I have, and I will use my assets, have to sell them sometime, but I will give to the poor. And sometimes we say, well, just take that for granted. That's no big deal. I'm benevolent to the people in need. You know what that means? It's God's way of showing us how we can lay up treasure in heaven. In 2 Corinthians, the 9th chapter, I'm going to take this to a broader principle that I think might help us in our life, where we realize, no, that mammon is going to be a means to a greater end. It's not going to be my God, but I'm going to use it. And here was an occasion where the Jewish brethren in Judea needed benevolent help. And the Gentile, primarily Gentile members of the church in Asia Minor, which we see places in Corinth, Macedonia, and all those places, primarily Greeks and Gentiles, Paul's collecting money from those churches to help the poor, among the brethren. And we pick up in verse 11 of 2 Corinthians 9, ye being enriched in everything unto all liberality. That word is so wonderful because it means single-eyed. It's singleness. And what that leads to is abundance. Your eye's single. It's not about me, not about business, not about me having money, what I can buy, no, it's single to the Lord. You'll realize how liberal you'll be in your giving. Everything to all liberality, which is working through us, thanksgiving to God. For the ministration of this service not only filleth up the measure of the wants of the saints, these are alms, and they're helping people who are poor at this time. Not only helps aboundeth also the wants of the saints, but aboundeth also through many thanksgivings unto God. Seeing that through the proven of you by this ministration, it's proving you. They glorify God for your obedience to your confession unto the gospel of Christ. Just stop there. This is giving money, some medium of exchange. And what was it changed into? That's my broader principle. Helping the poor, yes, but it even goes beyond that. He says, your liberality has brought not just thanksgiving to God, but abundant thanksgiving to God. What have you done? I just gave some money to the brethren in Judea that were poor. You exchanged that for God getting a lot of thanksgiving. People thanking him because of what you've done. And I begin to realize if I can change, using money, I can change it to spiritual blessings. That's heavenly treasure too. Because God is thanked. And not only that, but they're thanking God for your obedience to the gospel. What's the message of the gospel? Both Jew and Gentile, we're all saved. We have one Savior. We're one man in Christ. There's no Jew or Greek. We're all one man. Let's prove it. Get out your pocketbook. Whoa, I don't know about that. They did that. And even these brethren who were poor themselves, as he speaks about the fact of how they were in Macedonia, how that much proof of affliction and an abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded to the riches of their liberality that brings abundant thanksgiving. They didn't have anything they gave. And it showed you really believe we're one man in Christ. We are really brothers. You give to help family. And that's what they were doing. And I think one of the things that God's Word teaches us, that this is just a medium of exchange, be able to use it, be willing to do that, helping the poor in these two contexts, and that's what Jesus says. Give alms, sell what you have and give alms, and give the poor, and you'll make for yourselves pocketbooks that never wax old in heaven. You carry all your treasure, and you'll have treasure that will never fail. So the next time you think about, is there someone in need that I could help? Someone will take care of them. Government will. Look what you're missing out on. It's a way that we can lay up treasures in heaven. And that's what sons of light need to see mammon as. It's a medium of exchange. I can exchange that for some spiritual blessings. But if God's not your master, that may be a very difficult thing to do for you. And then the third point is that in Jesus' application, he says, who's going to entrust unto you the true riches? And what we find is true riches in heaven, having treasure in heaven. In 1 Timothy 6, in verses 18 and 19, I want you to do good. He's talking to rich people. Didn't condemn them for being rich. He said how you use your riches now. That you do good, be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate. Nobody's having to force you and browbeat you into giving. No, I'm willing to communicate, share with what I have with those in need. What are you doing? Laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come when the world and all these things are burned up. Against the time to come that they may lay hold on the life which is life indeed. True treasures in heaven is eternal life, which is life indeed. I got life now. I got the good life. Money's buying it, providing, and all those things. And we can get caught up into that. But we need to be reminded from this parable, who's going to give you the true treasures if you're not faithful in the little? And he calls it mammon, the money. I don't care how much you have, that's little in compared with the heavenly treasures. And I know how I can make for myself treasures in heaven. And you do too. Give alms, help the poor. And I need to realize that money can become my God. Covetousness is idolatry. I want more and more. I got the money to buy it. And we get caught up in that. We need to realize that what Jesus is teaching us is not that money is evil. He's teaching us to use it the way we should. Now, here I want to go back to the rich young ruler. I want you to put yourself in there. I've thought about this week, so I'm going to make you go through the agony too. He didn't say, give everything that you have to the poor. He didn't say that to us. He didn't say that in Luke 12. And when the New Testament church is taking care of the poor, they didn't sell everything they had. But they had land and property, they would sell it. They still had other means of support. So it wasn't becoming destitute so I can help others. Having property and having money so I can take care of things, that's in place. But to that rich young ruler, he did tell him in Luke 18:22. Some of the other passages of that account doesn't say it, but Luke 18 does. Sell all that you have. And we kind of say, that doesn't apply to me. Jesus not here telling me to do that, and he's not. I think Jesus is doing that to find out who your God is. There's one thing you lack. I kept a lot of part of the Decalogue. There's one thing you lack. And he hit at his heart where idolatry lies. Sell all that you have and give alms for the poor, and I'll give you treasure in heaven. Come, follow me. And I thought if Jesus was here this week as I studied the passage, if he came over and said, Jerry, this is what I want you to do. Sell all that you have. Oh, you don't know how long I've worked on my IRA, Jesus. And it wasn't about me, it's about my family. I've seen people in old age, they don't have anything. And I got an IRA, government allowed me to have that, and you sell all that you have. Everything. Got a house that's paid for. Sell all that you have. What would I say to Jesus? We're not talking about a lot of times extra cash that I could get rid of. When Jesus hits and want to know about your idol, he said, you sell everything that you have, everything you've accumulated. And a lot of times, that might be older people. We've accumulated a lot of stuff. And Jesus would hit us one day as we're traveling along. I want to inherit eternal life. And we see that message turning on me and coming into my heart. Would I be willing to sell everything that I have, everything, give it to the poor, and go follow Jesus? He said, well, that would not be a very wise thing to do. I didn't ask you what you thought about Jesus' wisdom. That's a test. Would I do that? Would I trust him to what he just said, I'll give you treasures in heaven, which I've studied here and realized those are the true treasures. It will never fail. I'll have that. And then trust in Jesus to get you through life's way. That's the demand he put on that man. He went away exceeding sorrowful. Yeah, would you? Would you say, Jesus, I will do that? And if you can't say, I will do that, there's a God wanting to have a place in your heart. And we must be willing to do that. That's why when we lose all of our possessions, in Hebrews, when people were, chapter 12, were losing everything, they rejoiced. How could you rejoice? Because they had God as their God, and they realized we have greater treasures. We have an abiding treasure in heaven. There's the joy of Christianity, not when things are going right for me or right for you. And we can rejoice in Jesus Christ, rejoice in the Lord. We do that when they're confiscating our property, when they're taking everything that we have, and we can still have that inner joy. That's Christianity. And I wonder if we have that kind of heart today. I wonder if I do. Jesus hasn't put that test to me, hasn't put that test to you. He said, fear not, little flock, I'll give you the kingdom. Give alms to the poor. You have treasure in heaven. And we can do that. But if you ever want to test yourself, would I give it all up now? And I hopefully say, yeah, in a minute. Would it? Or would you have to say, because you're thinking in terms, I want to be practical in my living. I want to be prudent in this world. Hey, the unrighteous steward was pretty prudent in this world. But what is our God? Whom do we really serve? That's the question. And I think when Jesus hits at money, he hits at that place. To know that I'm on the right track, I want you to notice the reaction of the Pharisees to this parable. Right after he finishes this parable, we'll find that the Pharisees are listening in. He directed chapter 15 to them. He's speaking to his disciples. They're listening in. And when they heard it, did they hear someone commend the unrighteous steward for his wisdom? Say, hey, it's about time you get on track. No, they were lovers of money. And it hit them at their heart as it might hit you if you have a lover of money tonight. And they scoffed at him. They didn't praise him for telling it like it is. They scoffed at him because it painted their picture. He says, sons of light, don't be like this. Be a lover of God. Instead of a lover of money. And what Jesus says to this, he says, as he responds, ye are they that justify yourselves in the sight of men. The master commended him. The people said, this is great. I'll receive you into my house. You give me a discount. You justify yourselves in the sight of men, but God knoweth your hearts. For that which is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of God. He said, sons of light, learn from this. That's why he spoke the parable, but he knew his listeners were too, and he hit at the heart of the Pharisees. And he said, well, I'm not a Pharisee, are you? Sometimes we can become lovers of money, and we can fall away from the faith. And if you ever want to test yourself, lose your God, put yourself in that rich man's place and respond honestly to Jesus' demands. Right now, he hasn't demanded that of you and me, but if we were to lose it all, will we have joy in our heart because we have an abiding treasure in heaven, because we're using the means of the mammon of unrighteousness, filthy lucre, money used for exchange? Are we using that to the glory of God? And I hope that we're daily translating that, sending that from just money to spiritual blessings and spiritual thanksgiving to God, and also laying up for ourselves treasures in heaven, because we know exactly how to do that now. I trust that we'll live a life like that. This evening, you have a decision to make of who's your master. Sin is your master. If you're outside of Christ and you haven't dealt with the guilt of sin and serving the lust of your flesh, sin is your master. And we cannot go to heaven with sin as our master. But Jesus, through his death and resurrection, has given us the way in which we can leave sin as our master and cleave unto the Lord. And we don't have to give in to sin, and he doesn't run our lives any longer. But we serve a different master who has promised us eternal life. Will you be the one who says, I will give my allegiance and I'll love God with all of my heart and soul and mind, and I'm going to give my full heart in allegiance to the truth of the gospel? Or will you be the one that we sing in this song, almost persuaded? It demands it all. Almost is but to fail. Take this sermon and realize Jesus promises you heaven. It's greater treasure than you could ever accumulate in this world. Don't sell your soul. Let Jesus save it. As we stand and sing, please come to Christ.